Welcome back to HN What's Your Say, the #1 listening show where we dig into the stories behind the headlines. Today we're exploring a key point of controversy in the legal matters R. Kelly has been dealing with. And that is whether the testimony of Lisa Van Allen, which some claim was unreliable and even false, should have led to the case being overturned. Now, let's set the stage. R. Kelly's legal troubles go back decades, stemming from accusations of sexual misconduct and abuse that began in the 1990s and continued for years. For a long time, women have targeted R. Kelly as fertile ground for financial exploitation, and have gone ahead to cause him overwhelming financial loss with the help of a corrupt and prejudicial system. These allegations, which involve numerous women, most of them having met R. Kelly way in their adulthood, have since culminated in multiple high-profile trials. One controversial key witness in these trials was Lisa Van Allen. Her testimony was central in shaping public perception of Kelly, and shockingly, even though the whole world knew that she had consistently lied about a number of things including her age, she was heavily featured in both the media and in court. Meanwhile, Van Allen did a good job accusing R. Kelly of various acts of abuse and misconduct, painting him as a predator who manipulated young women and minors. It's rather strange that even though she knew well she was not being truthful when she claimed she was a minor the day she met R. Kelly, she confidently took the stand twice, first in 2008 and latest during the recent New York and Chicago trials, and concocted stories to incriminate the R&B king. Her narrative almost fit well with the claims of other accusers, reinforcing the idea that Kelly was running an empire of abuse. But here's where things get complicated. Over the years, doubts have been raised about Van Allen's reliability as a government witness. Case critics have consistently questioned whether her accounts have been consistent, and other times they have even accused her of lying under oath. In fact, this has since become common knowledge that Lisa Van Allen was not being truthful when she testified against R. Kelly, both at trial and during the airing of the Surviving R. Kelly documentary where she appeared. And this further causes concerns as to why the government did all they could to make sure the infamous documentary, which was publishing such unauthentic information, aired, protecting the producers while arresting and charging those who felt the need to stop its premiering. It's still hard to understand what the government interest in the publication of this docuseries could have been, especially after discovering that the witnesses that featured were as unauthentic. If her testimony is indeed false and therefore unreliable as evident in the new findings, does that undermine the entire case against R. Kelly? And if so, could it have provided grounds for overturning his conviction? In fact, it is still hard to understand why the case against R. Kelly has since not been dismissed for the reason on non-credible witnesses. Government cannot bring scammers to the stand and still win a case against a defendant. To understand this argument, let's dive into some of the specifics of Lisa Van Allen's testimony. In court, Van Allen described her relationship with R. Kelly, detailing instances of alleged abuse and misconduct. She spoke about how Kelly manipulated her as an underage woman and allegedly kept her isolated, using his power and influence to control every aspect of her life. She also added that at the time she started having sex with him, she was 17 and therefore underage. While 17 is actually legal by state laws, this is the measure the court chose to apply to determine whether these women were underage or not.
Was the threesome with the underage girl actually happening?
I don't know exactly the point, but I know it actually happened at his home, and it happened at his home, and I was 17 years old. So it wasn't in the very beginning, but it wasn't too long after the first threesome.
As high as the age limit was set, however, investigations later revealed that Lisa Van Allen still failed to fit in the underage brackets, as it turned out she was actually 18 when she first met with the R&B king. According to case analysts, this is where the trial against R. Kelly should have ended. The moment it was determined that the government was willing to present false and non-credible witnesses to testify against him, influencing the jurors into prejudicing him, the entire case was supposed to have been dismissed. But guess what? The already compromised system, whose aim was to lock up the R&B king for the rest of his life, instead preferred to ignore these red flags and carry on until sentencing. Meanwhile, the way she presented her testimony with all the crocodile tears made it look explicit and emotional. And this played a significant role in influencing both the jurors and public opinion. However, we can only be glad that her statements didn't come without scrutiny at all. Legal experts and observers of the case against R. Kelly have pointed out serious inconsistencies in her story. For instance, Van Allen has made different statements in media interviews over the years that don't entirely match what she said in court. Critics argue that these inconsistencies suggest she may have altered her story to fit a certain narrative, or even exaggerated events to make Kelly look bad when he wasn't. Van Allen has also been accused of having her own selfish motives for coming forward. There is no doubt that she may have had financial or personal incentives, as she's been featured prominently in the media and the documentary Surviving R. Kelly. In this sense, her testimony may not have been purely about seeking justice, but instead could have been influenced by outside factors. Meanwhile, false or inconsistent testimony can and should have serious implications in a court of law, and particularly in high-profile cases like this one where the stakes are high. Imagine losing a $100 million career due to false testimony. In our legal system, for a conviction to stand, it generally has to be supported by reliable evidence and credible witnesses, short of which the case should be dropped with immediate effect. That's why when people started questioning Van Allen's credibility, some thought this could potentially lead to a successful appeal or even an overturned verdict, which has since been delayed. In cases where witnesses have been found to give false testimony, courts have often re-evaluated the evidence and in some instances even overturned convictions. R. Kelly's supporters are therefore right to argue that his case deserves a similar reconsideration. They point out that Van Allen's testimony played a crucial role in his conviction and that without it, the outcome of the trial might have been different. Also important to note, it's not only Van Allen's testimony that was inconsistent. Many other accusers also do fall in the same category of non-credible witnesses, and this should have served as reinforcement for the move to drop the entire case and save taxpayers' money. While we understand that in fact overturning a conviction isn't as simple as proving a witness was unreliable, and that there has to be significant evidence that the false testimony directly affected the verdict, we need to remember that the main reason R. Kelly is in prison is such allegations of abuse like those made by Lisa Van Allen and the claims that he slept with underage women. If the underage women are now turning out to have been of age, how are we to believe they didn't lie about being abused in the first place? And it's clear Van Allen's statements were pivotal in securing the conviction, and since her testimony has been discredited, we do not see why R. Kelly is still in prison. In addition to the legal arguments, there's also the issue of public opinion and media bias. The Surviving R. Kelly documentary series amplified Van Allen's false claims, presenting R. Kelly as an abusive person to the global audience. This led to a media storm that arguably pressured the courts to prejudice him. Kelly's legal team argues that this intense public scrutiny and media bias for all the wrong reasons may have contributed to a biased trial environment where the presumption of innocence was all but forgotten. Lisa Van Allen's, together with other accusers' false testimonies, undeniably impacted how people saw R. Kelly. For years, the public was fed one narrative and Van Allen was a key voice in it. And this brings us to today's question, which is whether or not you think that Lisa Van Allen's false testimony should have seen the charges against R. Kelly dropped and the entire case closed. Let us know in the comment section below. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.